This is the Orishnik missile, a state-of-the-art weapon system launched from a massive 12 by 12 truck platform. It has been meticulously engineered with multiple stages, enabling it to reach orbit in a few minutes. But what sets it apart from all the rest? Well, this missile can hit hypersonic speed. Once it reaches this altitude, it transitions into a steep dive, accelerating to hypersonic speeds. During its descent, the missile's fairing opens to unveil 6 highly sophisticated warheads. Each warhead is equipped with miniature thrusters at its base. These thrusters enable the warheads to maneuver dynamically even as they fall under the influence of gravity. They can change directions, making it almost impossible for the Patriot missile to hit its target, all in the video ahead.
Watching the world burn, December 29th, 2024. Let's get into it. So I wanted to address 2 comments, because I always address those first in my videos. I have put together a brief 1 minute 49 second clip on China's new assault vessel, the largest in the world. And one of the people responded, he says, well, it's obsolete just like a U.S. aircraft carrier because you could knock that thing out with a hypersonic missile. Very, very true. Very, very true. But what I wanted to point out was just the thing that I marveled about it was think of the technical achievement to build that monstrosity. I mean, if you want to go back, you can watch that one minute video either on X or I put it up also on YouTube and Rumble. I didn't put it on Odyssey. But anyway, but yeah, I guess that's what I was admiring. I wasn't implying that, it was going to be the ultimate super weapon. Although, when you think about it, if they use that to invade Taiwan, they can get a hell of a lot of material on that ship to get it over. Now, granted, Taiwan's probably got some ATACMS and, missiles that could probably strike that vessel, but as long as they stay out of range, you could move a hell of a lot, a lot of equipment in close, and then just drop it, in the ocean. A bunch of smaller ships and everything else, and let those go in for a land invasion of Taiwan. I mean, I'm just speculating here, but that thing was I just looked at it and I thought, who the hell can build something like that? It used to be the purview of the United States. We were the only ones who could build these monstrous aircraft carriers. So that was the first comment. Second comment I'm going to address in the future video. And this person pointed out that I always talk about how Russia is surrounded and they were justified in their invasion of Ukraine. And when I say invasion, the intervening in the civil war that was taking place in Ukraine on the behalf of the Russian speakers that Ukraine was destroying. And he says, you always talk about how Russia is surrounded. Why don't you talk about how Israel is surrounded by enemies? Because I always talk about the genocide and the evil Israel and all of that. But I found, and then he said also, I use RT too much in my videos. And I said, well, I also use Al Jazeera, But anyway, so I still watch RT. I'm not going to stop watching it. But I found a video on RT, and we're going to do this in a future video, that actually is a pro-Israel video from RT. So you might say that, in a certain fashion, RT, he says it's just a propaganda arm of the Russian government. So why are they doing a pro-Israel video? And like I said, we'll put that up in a future video. I like these scenery shots. Plus, I'm hiking the fire road, so I got to keep my eyes where I'm walking. But anyway, let's get into a few things I wanted to talk about. The first was I was watching Alexander McCoris. If you don't watch him on the Duran, he has his own individual show. He was pointing out the fact that we gave 500 ATACMS missiles to Ukraine. Now, I don't think we fired anywhere near that number, so I would imagine the Russians sniffed them out and probably blew up a bunch of them before they could even get launched. But the other thing that he was pointing out on his estimates is that that's 1/4 of the United States inventory of attack missiles. I mean, we're depleting our weapon stocks down to zero. I don't know why the Pentagon is going along with this. You can't tell me that the Biden administration, not only are they destroying the United States, they're trying to demilitarize the United States. You know, we've given the Bradleys to them, we've given the tanks, we've given the F-16s. I mean, what's left in the United States inventory to defend the United States? I mean, that was a hell of a number, 500. So now we probably only have, and we're not even manufacturing them anymore, that is from what he was saying, is that, you know, we only got 1,500 left. Unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. The other factoid that Alex pointed, this wasn't Alex McCorris, this is Alex Braincroft. Anyway, I've read some posts by him. He did that Panama post in the previous video that I thought was pretty darn good. You know, Trump is saying he's going to take the Panama Canal back. You never know. You never know. But anyway, he was pointing out that Ukraine, because, you know, Britain's like a barking dog. They just go on and on about, you know, they were all for using ATACMS and Storm Shadows and, you know, all the hardware. They just, I don't know why Britain's got such a hard-on for Russia. And they hate them. I guess they just hate the Russians for some strange reason. But anyway, he said Ukraine, and it was a good number. He said Ukraine loses more men in casualties in a month or two than is in the entire British army. So I don't see how the Brits are going to fight the Russians anytime soon, even if they do send troops over there. I don't think that if they last 2 months, I'd be surprised. Because remember, the Ukrainian soldiers, a lot of them are battle hardened, you know. The other controversy, well, the other thing I wanted to say about Britain before I get off of that topic is they've got more people in jail from posting on X than any other country, I think, in the world. So you won't say that Britain is a free country. There's a reason that we had the Revolutionary War. Thank God the British government is not ruling over the United States anymore. I mean, you know, that tells you what they think of free speech. They hate it. And then, of course, on the same vein, the German, one of the German chancellors, I don't know who the guy was, maybe I'll put it up top here in the video. He was saying that the X has influenced the German elections and that he wants to start censoring X in Germany. So you can see that Europe is not a very free place. You know, and when of course, we're not either. I mean, the Democrats almost took away free speech here in the United States. It was just thank God that, you know, people like our Robert Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard and Elon Musk got behind Trump to save the U.S. Constitution, because Democrats hate free speech and Democrats hate the Second Amendment because they're all about their own power. See, without those two things, you know, kind of like Australia, you know, when Australians gave up all their weapons, that government became a totalitarian government. And man, what they did during COVID, we've talked about that in previous videos. That was unbelievable, setting up concentration camps and everything else. Whew. And I always, you know, when you watch Crocodile Dundee, I always thought Australia was this really free place, and it turns out it's not, man. That's another totalitarian government there. So anyway, but what else was it? Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about the H-1B controversy. Now, if you didn't know, Elon came out and said, you know, we need to bring in legal immigration of people that are technically skilled to work for him and for other technical tech giants. You know, otherwise, you know, we're not going to advance as fast as we can. And you know what? I'm sure that's true in a certain kind of way. But let me just give you my slant on that, because I was directly affected by the H-1B import. Now here's the problem. Okay, so when I was in college, I was a physics major. Okay, man, I'm going to tell you what, you got to be. That is one tough major to get. I mean, there's a reason that, people like Einstein are Einstein. But I loved it. I really enjoyed it. It's just I wasn't very good at it. And in the end, I ended up flunking the theory of relativity because I just couldn't get my head around it. And that one class wasn't going to be offered again for a whole year. So I already had enough computer science. So I ended up finally getting a computer science degree. Now, here's the problem. So you come out, and by the way, I had studied low-level, assembly language, C programming. I could write an operating system. But I came out, and the first job I had was in data tree. Never heard of it. It was a database language. And see, that was a different degree. I was a computer scientist, not a information, what's it called? An information specialist, which is kind of, databases and stuff. So I had to learn how to use data tree. I finally figured it all out, but it was tough, man. And I was in Washington, D.C. I'm only getting paid on my first job, $24,000. And you think about it, that was a 4-year damn degree to get to that. So one of the huge problems that we have as far as technical talent goes is we way underpay them. Okay, and it got worse. So, finally I worked my way up to a job because when you learn how you're going to navigate in the computer world, you can become a manager sometimes, but a lot of times they'll bring in a business major and stick them over top of all the technical people, and they don't know dick about computers. And they're making $200,000, and they're paying the computer programmers, $50,000, $40,000, right? So, and you would think that they would reach down in the ranks and say, okay, let's get somebody who's doing a great job, who knows a hell of a lot about computers, and promote them into a management position and groom them. Because, then you got somebody who knows what he's doing. All right, so that's one huge problem. So people in the technical fields are way, way underpaid. The only way you're going to make it in the computer world is if you can write an app. I mean, some of these people that have written apps, they sell their apps, so you develop a product that you can sell, or you can hire on a team if you've got the wherewithal of other computer people that will work underneath you. And then you can set up like a consulting company or something like that and make a ton of money. But then you got to learn those business skills. And a lot of technical people that's a skill that's very difficult for them. And then the third problem is, okay, so here I worked myself into one hell of a good job. They had put me through, I don't know, $30,000 worth of courses to be able to work in PeopleSoft. That's a financial management system, or also an employee information database. Anyway, it's very, very technical. Not many people know how to do it, and so I was pretty set. Well, what they did was they brought in, and here I am, I'm making, at that time, I'll give you the number, I was making $80,000. So they brought in 3 guys from India, and they told me to train them. And I'm like, because the writing's on the wall right there. What, do they think you're stupid? And but at the time I was swamped with all this other work. It's not that I didn't mind training them, because I could always go get another job making about the same amount of money at that time. And so I wasn't against training them, but I never got the chance, because they finally laid me off. They said they're getting 3, because what they were doing was they were paying those H-1B salaries about $30,000 a piece. So for $90,000, they got 3 people where they were paying me $80,000 for the price of 1. So you do the math. Now, does that mean that they can churn out the work that I was able to do, even though it was 3 against 1? No. I'm sure they had a hell of a learning curve. So for a while, they probably weren't producing hardly anything for a long period of time. Sometimes you get what you pay for. But what I'm saying is, because of the way our education system is done, and because of the compensation that we give people in the technical world, that's the reason that we're so short on technical talent. Plus, who wants to come out of college with a 4-year degree and work, starting out like I did for $24,000 in a very technical skill? So here's another example. Physics and computer science are a hell of a lot more difficult than electrical engineering. Okay, I could have been an electrical engineer, no problem. In fact, I knew some. They partied all the time. I studied all the time. Okay, so, but an electrical engineer will come out, starting salary, $80,000. Okay, so who the hell wants to be a programmer when you could just be an electrical engineer? Or let's take a business major. The business major studied even less at college. Okay, they come out, they'll make upwards of $200,000, if you get that right spot. So you understand why there's a shortage of technical talent. Nobody wants to do it. All right, so that's all I wanted to say about that. And, I don't know how we correct that. Of course, we got to abolish the Department of Education. That'll help quite a bit. And if we make math, more important in school again, teach people that skill. But in the meantime, Elon and Trump are correct. We're going to have to import that talent because nobody wants to work for that low a wage. And then, but I will tell you this too. You think those people that you're getting from India and Pakistan and China, that they really know what they're doing? No. I'm going to tell you what, I've seen some Indian code because I was a programmer when I first started my career. It was horrible. These guys don't know what the hell they're doing. So yeah, you're only paying them $30,000, but what you're getting out of it is garbage. You couldn't maintain it. You just end up throwing it all away. So you get 1 year of work that doesn't amount to anything because that person wasn't educated properly. So you think that you're getting talent, but a lot of times you're not. All right, let's go through a few of the bookmarks here. Let's see. This is Zat-71. Stopping Russian gas supplies via Ukraine in 2025 to 2026 will cost Europe 120 billion euros, according to Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico. If you didn't know, he was just in Russia talking to Putin about that. This was a post that I'm going to look into this. It says the Department of Government Efficiency is recruiting a small number of full-time salaried HR, IT, and finance positions. Now, I would talk to Elon. I mean, maybe somebody who watches this video has got a handle to Elon that you'd be just as good off as hiring part-time people. And, like for me, I'd work for hardly nothing or for nothing and help them out as best I could. And, and they don't even have to pay me. So, that's something that they could think of, especially these old people who've retired and have got all the experience. They don't want to go into a full-time job. That's a young man's world. This was what I was talking about. German President Steimer says X, Twitter, is influencing elections and is a danger to democracy. I love it. It's always a danger. He's a danger to democracy. He's a danger to democracy. Remember they were saying that about Trump? Oh my God, it's so stupid. Democrats will believe anything, won't they? External influence is a danger to democracy, whether it's covert or open and blatant, and it's currently being practiced particularly intensively on the platform X. And all right, so that was him. This was an interesting post. Because I don't believe in the climate hoax. Award-winning journalist Alex Newman delivers a perfect 90-second summary of the climate scam. The notion that CO2 is pollution is absolutely preposterous. The idea that it's going to destroy the planet or change the temperature of the Earth is totally ludicrous. Now, I understand the more CO2 you have, the greener the planet is. Back during the dinosaur age, the CO2 levels were astronomical, but man, everything was a jungle back then. So plants love CO2. I just want to point that out to you. But from a totalitarian perspective, if you can convince people that CO2 is pollution, there's no human activity that doesn't result in CO2 emissions, including living, including dying, turning on a light switch. Every single aspect of your life, then, if we submit to the idea that CO2 is pollution, then comes under the regulatory control of the people who claim to be saving us from pollution. Let's watch that video now.
A lot of this environmental question depends on, I think, a very flawed fundamental presupposition. It depends on the idea that carbon dioxide is pollution. And I would argue, after interviewing hundreds of scientists, including many who've worked for the UN IPCC, many of the leading scientists in the world, that the notion that CO2 is pollution is absolutely preposterous. We exhale about 2 pounds of it every single day. The proportion of greenhouse gases made up of human CO2 emissions is a fraction of 1%. The idea that that is going to destroy the planet or change the temperature of the earth is, frankly, in my opinion, totally ludicrous. But from a totalitarian perspective, if you can convince people that CO2 is pollution, there's no human activity that doesn't result in CO2 emissions, including living, including dying, turning on a light switch. Every single aspect of your life then, if we submit to the idea that CO2 is pollution, then comes under the regulatory control of the people who claim to be saving us from pollution. So when they do these environmental studies and they say, well, your CO2 footprint will be smaller if you eat bugs or you do this, that, or the other, you drive an electric car, that doesn't show anything about whether that's going to benefit the environment or not. In fact, CO2 has actually been very beneficial for the environment. In interviewing Trump's climate advisor, Dr. William Happer, a physics professor at Princeton University, he said the Earth is starving for more CO2. And since we've had a little bit of an increase in atmospheric CO2 over the last 100 years or so, plants have gotten much greener, agricultural yields have improved. So I think we need to also talk about the fundamental presupposition here. Is CO2 really pollution? If it's not, then all these alleged environmental benefits are completely fictional.
All right, so that was I thought that was just a great post. So there we go. This was interesting from Laura Logan. I tell you what, she's full of spitfire and vinegar. I love reading her. What kind of morons would spend all this money building such an important strategic national security asset and then sacrifice it to your enemies? And this is a post from Michael Yan. Panama, Chinese port on the Pacific side of the Panama Canal yesterday. Please support this critical research, and it's a drone flying. Let's watch that video right now. So that's supposed to be the Chinese port in the video. I suppose it is. This is terrible. These are just 10 things. You probably already know these, but we can get through these really quick. Top 10 headlines the media didn't tell you this week. Repost. Follow. Dan Crenshaw threatens to sue Cat Turd. If you didn't know who Cat Turd was, he's a famous individual on X. Anyway, he does a lot of good posts. I mean, I don't know how the guy has time. He must spend all his time just posting. Elon announces X algorithm update amid immigration debate. Governor Gavin Newsom to help illegal migrants dodge Trump's mass deportation. Trump to launch a soft invasion against Mexican drug cartels. Biden will send Ukraine last $1.2 billion taxpayer-funded assistance package. Illegal immigrant from Guatemala set a sleeping woman on fire in the New York subway. We talked about that in the last video. People just walked by, man. It's unbelievable. Or filmed it and just watched her burn. Human torch, man. Biden abandoned his mass student debt cancellation plans. Saudi doctor who drove through the German Christmas market was carrying an explosive device. White House press secretary threatens a restriction on the transition of power from Biden to Trump. Biden commutes the sentences of death row and rapists and murderers. So a lot of that we already knew, but some people watching this video might not know that. So let's keep going. And this was the Alex Barnicoat. Ukraine loses more troops in 2 months. Yeah, it was 2 months. I wasn't sure if it was a month. Than the entire British Army has available. Yet for some reason, Keir Starmer believes the UK could defeat Russia. Why does he think that? That's a good damn question. And we'll finish up right here. Let's see. French investor and author David Barvis. We do not recognize the transfer of values that is occurring from Europe to the United States and how this is happening through defense. Did you know that 75% of the weapons we purchased for the war in Ukraine did not come from Europe? I see that we are buying liquefied natural gas at 5 times the price we paid to Putin. That is a good question. Why does Europe want to pay the United States 5 times as much when they could well, we blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, but still, I mean, right now, Slovakia and Hungary are still getting. I saw a post that, I don't know if it's true, but Hungary said if Ukraine shuts off that pipeline, they're going in militarily to keep that pipeline flowing. So now we might have Ukraine fighting the Russians and fighting the Hungarians. Boy, I tell you, the Ukrainians are some really dumb people, aren't they? They'll die by the millions for NATO and get nothing out of it, other than a country just destroyed. I mean, I don't know I guess the women in Ukraine. Well, a lot of them are now prostitutes in Europe, but I mean, there's not going to be any men left in Ukraine for them, and it sounds like they might drop the recruiting age to 18. So then there's the IRA, a tax program that compels Europe to reindustrialize. Not in Europe, but in the United States. Well, yeah, the fuel costs are too much for Europe to be able to run their industry in Europe, so they got to ship it over to the United States and China. They've got some, Volkswagen, I believe, has some factories in China. That's when you realize you got an unprecedented transfer of value happening. However, we shouldn't place the blame solely on the United States. We can only blame ourselves. All right, that's it. Peace out. Stay free. It occurred to me that I didn't explain the Russian gas and oil going through Ukraine and why that's permitted. You'd say, well, why is Ukraine allowing Russia to profit? Well, that's because Russia pays Ukraine on the lease for those gas lines a transit fee. I think it's like $800 million a year, which, I mean, pales in comparison, to what the $200 billion that the United States, now it's, it's probably about $250 billion that the United States has given Ukraine. But still, I mean, it's hard to turn away $800 million. So that, what the thing is, if Trump scales back the money that Ukraine's getting, and they do shut down that pipeline, they're cutting their neck. Their money train is coming to an end in more ways than one. But anyway, I just thought you might be curious, going like, wait a minute, why is there oil and gas from Russia going through Ukraine? And that's the explanation. Just wanted to keep one more clip in here. I don't know if you've been following along, but the new narrative that the media is putting out, and it was a former, anybody who's a former FBI or CIA, I wouldn't believe a damn thing that they say. Anyway, I don't know. He came out, and of course, all the legacy media picked up on it, and they said, well, Tulsi Gabbard and Pete Hegseth and RFK are not, not qualified or to do the jobs that they've been put in. Like anybody in the Biden administration, you think Pete Buttigieg knew anything about transportation, or Jennifer Granholm? she's a flipping idiot, man. Almost everybody in the Biden administration is an idiot. But the difference in a Trump administration, let's say Tulsi Gabbard does get in there and she falls flat on her face and she's not doing a good job. Trump is the most firing person in the whole world. He's not going to put up with that. He'd fire her in a second. Just like anybody in his administration. If he feels like they're not doing the job, Trump don't mess around. He'll just fire your ass. And I mean, of course, a Democrat would never fire another Democrat. I don't think there's been a cabinet position. Well, actually, that's not true. We did have the Secret Service woman that was unqualified to run the Secret Service, another example. She did resign. That's the only one I know of in the whole of Biden administration that ever was put out. So you had nothing but incompetence. And so anyway, confession through projection. That's all that is. Tulsi is infinitely qualified to do what she's going to be doing. So is all of Trump's cabinet picks for the most part. Just wanted to throw that out.